All right. It is now recording. We're 5 minutes in. We're going to start. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining session 3 or 4. Today's going to be more of an interactive session, and we're going to actually be doing an interactive co-designing session workshop, going through some product thinking stuff, talking about niches, and then some also like visual design, nitty-gritty stuff as well. Happy to kind of explain and tailor this based off the comments. So feel free to type it up or unmute yourself if you want to. So today I'll be doing the session with Jean. If you want to do a quick intro about yourself, we can get started.
Sure. Hey everyone, this is Jean. I am a product designer in the design systems team of Intuit. I just actually started this week. And just like Richard, I'm a career shifter. I started at Waterloo as well. I studied math and now I'm here designing stuff. So nice to meet you all.
Awesome. So my understanding is this project that you're calling Farista is based off a design challenge generator that you found online. So let's
Yes.
start with the product thinking side, I guess. And let's give everyone some context. What was the initial prompt for this design?
It was a really simple one. It said, find a way around a new city.
Find your way around a new city. Okay. And what was the problem that you're trying to solve with this design?
So actually I started at the top. So who are we, first of all? And by the way, this was all just me doing it to myself. So I was talking to the wall, pretending I was getting some kind of like conversation going with myself. I asked, who are we? What am I? And I said, maybe we're a government agency or an agency contracted by the government, or we could be an in-house. But I decided on an agency contracted by the government to increase tourism after the pandemic. Why is that so specific?
No, that's good, but that kind of frames it like in the perspective of the business. Like, who's the user that you want to solve for? Uh,
Right, exactly.
More specific than just like a tourist visiting a new city. Like, we can start with this, but um, visiting a new city. But this is a pretty generic kind of profile. I'm not asking for a persona, but let's talk about this person's problems. Like, what yeah, let's work with me here. Like,
Sure.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what
So after I decided on that, I said, okay, who are the actual users here? And I listed some ideas. One could be newcomers coming to live in Toronto or whatever city. It could be expats, it could be tourists, or it could be exchange students. So, I guess at the macro level, there are like people who are coming here permanently or people who are coming here temporarily. And because I'm talking to myself, and I just chose to do the tourist out of the four that I just listed.
Cool. So you said tourists, but tourists is kind of broad too, right? There's already a lot of existing solutions out there on the market for tourists, like TripAdvisor. I don't travel that much, but TripAdvisor and other companies like them already cater to tourists, right? We want to, if you want product market fit, generally you need to provide a 10x better experience for a specific segment of a market that may or may already be kind of occupied by some big players. So let's just say TripAdvisor has like 80% market share in the tourist advising market. We want to create a product that provides like a 10x improved experience or value for a subsegment of them as like a way to enter the market. So what do you think TripAdvisor does poorly for generic?
Mm-hmm. So, and then this is where I go into positioning, just like what you're talking about, what's the market segment, right? And if you take a look at TripAdvisor versus any other products out there, and where do we fit in? That's kind of the conversation I had. So TripAdvisor, it acts a lot like the tourism agencies out there. You just book a very generic tour package and at a pretty cheap price. And then there's Airbnb experience, which is kind of a premium service, but doing the same thing, but it's more geared towards people who don't want to bother with all these like same generic cheap stuff, but they're paying the premiums to be actually connected with the host. So there's that. So hot, and so you can kind of like look at those two as the end of the spectrum. And I said I want to be somewhere in the middle. And so what I did is kind of like the backwards of what you did. I picked the markets, the positioning first, so like the market, and then I dove into what kind of users fit into that market segment.
Okay, so you want to be somewhere in between generic tourism and authentic connections through Airbnb. So this is obviously like not a complete picture of the market. We're just hypothesizing right now for the sake of this exercise. So we have these two ends of the spectrum. They both serve very, very different goals and solve very different problems. What specific, like very, very specific problem for tourists or a specific type of tourist do neither of these two companies do a really good job at solving?
So in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the your average tourist will go to TripAdvisor, because if they're first-time travelers, especially, and you've heard of TripAdvisor and they have cheap prices, and they'll go to that. But if you've already experienced Airbnb and you have some money to pay, so you're a little bit more experienced in that sense in terms of traveling, then you'll go to Airbnb. So what's in the middle is kind of maybe like a little bit, it's like millennials, people who are willing to explore themselves, but also want some kind of connection to the local host, perhaps. And they don't want to pay a premium price because they're still willing to explore the city themselves as well, but don't want anything too generic because they've already done that as a first-time traveler like years ago, maybe. So something that's kind of where I went.
Authentic, okay. You can work with this. Authentic, unique. Um,
But not
I
a
think-
whole package. Like, sorry, sorry if I'm being too specific here, but I was just like trying to really like put myself in there. But um, someone who doesn't want to take a package, like a whole day of package trip that you just like go around on a bus. So they still want to explore on their own, but want to find some local stuff, like maybe if that fits their bill during the day, at some point in the day. But
okay, so I think we have kind of a profile here. So the prompt is find your way around the new city, which if you were to build a design for this, you would end up with something very generic, unspecialized, you would not have a niche, etc. So we want to find a unique prompt to solve and then kind of design accordingly and hopefully develop those skill sets as we go along. So the who, you start off with tourists visiting a new city. You've identified the two different profiles of permanent and temporary, and you want to focus on tourists, which is a temporary profile. And then we kind of talked about the existing market, ranging from TripAdvisor to Airbnb, ranging from like super generic to super authentic. And you wanted something in between. So you've identified this millennial tourist kind of persona that is more self-sufficient, independent, they're more exploratory, budget conscious. They value more authentic and less kind of cookie cutter generic experiences. They have like some more unique travel preferences. They don't want to be sold on a package. They want to be kind of more in control, I guess.
yeah, that's exactly
Okay, cool. So that's a good.
it. Yeah.
This is obviously like a massive assumption. You would not do this normally. Though what? Sorry, I just lost my chat window. Um, um, Zoom. Where did my chat go? Why is this UI so bad?
It's probably in another screen.
Sorry, I got it back. Okay, so yeah, we're assuming all these things.
Mhm.
So let's just like, keep this kind of profile in mind. This is where persona could be helpful, but personally, I feel personas are really, really useless as a research artifact. Um, they're taught a lot in boot camps because they're very easy to understand, but I've literally never seen a persona ever used in industry. The biggest disadvantage of personas is that it makes a lot of assumptions, and you're also assuming that they stay constant. And because it takes so much work, they're very rarely updated. Personas are really good. Maybe 5, 10 years ago when UX wasn't a thing and you needed to do a lot of empathy building internally with your team to kind of convince them to, build for the user. But nowadays, I don't think this is an issue. But for the sake of this challenge, let's just kind of go with this persona and frame the problem around them. So before I dive into like the actual design, I have like a framework that I use, and I want to kind of just call out that like this is my personal framework as somebody that's like very very metric driven and focused on growth design. Your framework will be different, and you should use mine as just a reference point instead of like the absolute best thing that you have to do and learn. So I usually start with a problem, and then I branch off into sorry with the problem, and I branch off into multiple help my we's, which are opportunities. And then for each help my we, I'll come up with a hypothesis that I can test and validate through design. Um, I don't know if this makes sense. This diagram makes sense at all. But I'm hoping we can go through this exercise really quickly together. So
Sure.
let's start with the problem statement. So we don't want to articulate like any solution or imply any solution, but we want to kind of like there's different like formats to kind of articulate a problem. My favorite format is the people problem, which is writing it in first person as the user, and trying to use as many humanistic language patterns as possible, like not really using any jargon. So some people kind of equate these to user stories or epics, like, as a blank, I want to do this because of X, Y,
Hmm.
Z. So maybe we can try that. Why don't you give it a stab? Um,
Sure.
as a budget conscious millennial traveler, tourist,
I I
value.
want
Yep.
yeah, I want to find a hidden gem
Um,
so I can
find hidden local gems so that
so that I feel like a local.
here, why
I
does
can
want to feel like a local though? That's like I don't like we want to kind of encapsulate some of their motivation in this as well.
what's that?
Want to encapsulate some of their motivations as well for like trying to solve this problem, right? Like why do they want to feel like a local?
Because they want to be different. I think intrinsically everyone wants to have that unique experience, and not say that, oh, I've also done that. But
Unique experience is good. So that I have a unique experience, right? Um I think somebody mentioned experiencing a different culture. So we want to make sure it's like specific to like this type of tourist. I feel like every tourist, actually, that's not true either. A lot of tourists do want to experience different cultures. Although I feel like I mapped the whole uniqueness factor to be more important for millennials for some reason. That's also just like a assumption right now. But okay, as a budget conscious millennial tourist, I want to find hidden local gems so that I have a unique experience. Maybe like get to experience authentic uh, local cultures, because, and then maybe want to call like rearticulate some of these things here because I don't know. Do you have a do you want to know how to end?
okay, get the experience, so I have a unique experience to get authentic local cultures because I want to be different. I want to look. I want to show off on my Instagram that
Post
I've had.
on social media. Okay, this is really bad, but this is specific enough for this design challenge. Okay.
Um,
Let me
but this is a real thing, right? A lot of people go on social media after they travel. It's like, hey, look at
this
me.
is
Yeah.
the user.
I'm guilty. Totally.
Um, this is the prompt. This is the motivation. Oh, because actually unique experience. Yeah, and that's the motivation. This is like a very loose format. I might do like a more in-depth kind of product slash problem framing workshop in the future if there's interest.
Let's do it.
This is for visual design and high-level product thinking and framing. So let's go with this.
Oh yeah, by the way, just want to iterate that this is like my second design challenge that I've done on myself. So
That's
go
fun.
easy on me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go hard as you want.
I feel like I'm like very chill. Like I'm not like I'm not gonna like try and like destroy you on this. That's not what
No,
people.
I prepared myself for this. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna do it anyways. We'll do our best. It's a collaborative team effort. Um, okay, so these are like different components here. Let's take let's kind of think of opportunities. And again, we don't want to infer a solution, but we want to kind of call out very specifically different aspects or angles that we can approach this problem. So okay, so for help my ways and opportunities, let's tackle each kind of like word individual. So budget conscious, right? What's a help my way for that? Help my way
Provide. How would we find affordable
focus affordable
experiences?
access. Okay. How might we ensure cost is transparent and upfront? So you want to basically brainstorm as many of these as possible for every facet of the problem. Can you think of any more for budget conscious?
Um, how might we define what's budget conscious for our users? Is that
That's more of
enough?
a research help might we, not really like a design help might we.
Oh, for the budget conscious one,
Let's think of one
how
more.
might we make it fair for the other side, I guess?
Well, they're not our core user right now. Like as we
Okay, true.
yes, but they're not our core user. All right, two's enough. All
True,
right.
true. Okay.
So this is for budget conscious. I can't spell. Quick check with the audience. Is this useful for you guys? Am I going into too much detail, or should we jump into the visual design earlier?
This is great.
Thank you. Well, I saw a few hands up, which is good. All right. Um, I just lost your face.
Oh,
Um, all right, cool.
did you
All
find
right,
me? All right.
all right, hidden gems. All right. So, what defines a hidden gem?
Mhm. How might we mm, find something that's less touristy? How might we define something less touristy? How would you?
Um, oh, I just lost it. How might we help our users identify what's considered a hidden gem? Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Can you think of any other ones? Let's try and come up with at least two for each facet.
Wow, I've never had to come up with this many how might ways in my life, but here I am.
Like a
Let's
lot
do
of
it.
like kind of half-ass this process. Like they'll do it and they don't refer back to or they don't tie into the design, which is what ends up creating a generic design, right? So I'm gonna show you how um,
No, I think you're totally right on that though. Sometimes I kind of get lazy on this step, and then it does turn into a bit of a generic design at the end of the day. So this is really good for me.
I think somebody said a good one, but like, how might we help people shoot like discover the hidden gems that are most relevant to their interests? That's a great one. Thank you, Jeremy. And Ahmed. How might we help our users help our users learn, uh, decide on which hidden gem to go to visit. I feel like there's a lot more here we can do for hidden gems. Let's try one more. Come on, Jane,
Okay.
you do all the work here.
How might we um how might we make how might we make it feel like a hidden gem so that I mean, how might we I'm just thinking somewhere along the line of taking someone to a place that's not as crowded. So
That's getting to the hypothesis phase of this.
oh oh man, I'm not very good at this.
So like a lot of junior designers, right? Like when they're taught this thing, they're like, all right, cool, like I get it, and then they don't really do it, or they don't do it properly, or they like this is actually like a skill. Like if you're really good at identifying a problem statement, extracting the help might ways, and then coming up with the corresponding hypotheses, and then like and then if you know how to like turn each hypothesis into a design you can validate, like that's easily like a 500K per year skill. Like you can build a consulting business just on that. Like this is how hard it is and how valuable it is once you master it. Um, so don't neglect like the power of this. Like I know the framework sounds a little bit cheesy, and it sounds like kind of like soft skilly, if that makes sense. So like
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
yeah, when I first started in design, like I was like, this is kind of bullshit. Like I design, like really pretty pixels and like have really types. But the further along you get into design, the more you realize like that's actually really easy to do. It's like not that hard. Like you can spend a weekend and learn how to create like a hi-fi prototype, but it takes like months and even years to get really good at like identifying really good helpmate ways. Um, oh, Jonathan Shub gave a really good one. Help me help our users navigate to the hidden gems. All right, this is great. Let's take the last piece here and let's call it social media flex. How about we help our users share their experiences on social media? How might
How
we?
might make it aesthetically pleasing
Yeah.
for I think that's why they're posting on social media in the first place.
Yeah, aesthetic and interesting content for social. They're kind of similar, but I think they're different enough. One more.
How might we help them get the attention they sought in the first place
How
on social media?
attention.
It's so evil.
Okay. So at this point, what I start to do is I start to look at what my competitors offer and think about what helmet ways can we do better than them, or can we do that they don't already address in order to stand out in the market. I don't know if you guys read my product thinking articles yet, but I talked about blue ocean, red ocean, monopolistic, and fragmented markets. So that's kind of like the thinking that you would need to do. This is also really core to product thinking, like identifying what features to build, to what extent and what order. Like that's super key. And like traditionally, oh my God, do you guys see this? Running out of time. This meeting will end in 10 minutes.
What?
Huh. Oh, nobody sees this. I just got like a pop-up from Zoom saying that this meeting will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade now to remove the 40-minute mark.
Oh
Lol.
yeah, I see it now.
Um,
Richard, we can use my link if you want, because we won't have that cut off. I can send in the chat if anyone's interested.
yeah, okay, let's go for another 10 minutes and then we'll switch over to your link if that's cool.
Sick, I'll send it to you. IM.
Yeah, sounds
Cool.
good. We'll record twice, so it'll just be like a two-parter. Okay, cool. I'll try and wrap up the product part in the first part. The second part will be just on visual design, so we'll have like a nice click, a nice break. All right, so hypotheses. So hypotheses is like a testable statement. And you often, the format is like if something happens, then this will happen because. I'm gonna skip the because step, but we'll just do if then. And we'll do it for each help might we. So for this one, oh, whoops, where did it go? If we provide a sorting filter on experiences, then budget conscious travelers can find the, actually no, we should do a price range slider, that's better. A price range slider. Then budget conscious travelers can find the experiences that fit their budget. Not the best articulation, but do you kind of see what I'm doing here?
So are you getting like super granular at this level? Like
yeah,
if
so
we
now
make this little design change, like will this actually help us?
exactly. So now I'm specifying very, very specific testable elements I can introduce into the UI to actually validate this hypothesis. A lot of people just like design something random and it's like, all right, this is good enough, this is for the user in mind, but they don't have like a methodical approach to like
I like this.
right? Because like if let's say we go to your screen, right, and then we define like a KPI or something, and then like, oh no, like our users are budget conscious millennials, but they're not booking anything. Why? And then like you're gonna kind of like talk yourself into circles and not have like a structured approach to kind of like narrow down exactly like what have we tested, what do we know for sure won't work, and what is still remaining in terms of what can work. Does that make sense?
There is a question from the audience, and I think it's a good question. Would you do competitor research before or after this hypothesis stage? And personally, I thought I would do positioning before the users. I mean, that's just the personal approach that I've taken always. But what's your what's your take on this?
So I feel like this person hasn't read my product thinking article, but you don't start with the problem. You always start with the market first, the market or the user first, right? Because if you start with the problem, that's like trying to like, you're like making a key and then trying to find a lock, which doesn't really make sense, right? You want to find a lock first and then build a key for that lock. So you actually always start with the competitor analysis first because that's part of the market research. So like right now, like I did problem first because you presented me with the prompt, and this is just like a fictional kind of project. But like we don't even know if this is like a big enough market, right? Like millennials now have very low purchasing power. I would actually even argue that like from a market perspective, this entire thing doesn't really make sense. Or like maybe the market share is already so like dominated by these companies, you can't really create any green space or a blue ocean market within that. So yeah, always do market first and like make sure you have a good market before you even start the problem. And good designers will be able to like identify this. Bad designers will just jump into the solution really quickly without questioning like, is this even the right thing to do? Does that make sense? Ahmed, my first article is on the market, so I'm not going to explain it again. But after you read it, I can give you more advice after. Cool. We have 4 minutes. I'm going to try and blast through
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you want to come up with multiple hypotheses because, like, you know, you can test each of these, but you don't know if you're right or wrong, right? And even if you're right, you can always do better. So price range slider is like one solution. We can do a filter, a price
Oh, this is like super granular at
super
this point.
super granular. We can do a cheap tag. We can do a help me out here, Jane.
Maybe like a matching system.
Scales
Just like suggest, here is a list.
I would say that would be more of a hypothesis for this one. If you can see my mouse.
Right. Yeah.
We want to like really zero in on like one specific thing to test specifically for the affordability factor.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. There's like 3 minutes left.
Yeah, James says he can't see my screen. Can you still see my screen? I'm wondering if it's a local issue.
I can see your screen.
Okay. Huh. Oh, we should probably switch over to the new Zoom link, actually. Give me 1 sec.
So are we all getting out and
Or actually, should I just upgrade? How expensive is this?
I don't think it's that expensive. Do you have your company one that you can use maybe?
So the funny thing about company ones is upgrade accounts. That's not too bad. It's like 14 bucks a month. All right, I'm just gonna upgrade.
On the spot.
Clutter.
Yeah, I think it's worth it if you're gonna be doing this every week.
No thanks. See, I'm actually like the stupidest person because I lose money by doing this every week. But it's okay.
Awesome.
I'm just kidding. 855. Please tell me if my credit card's like being shown on the screen. I don't think it is, but
No, I was thinking.
I'll,
Oh no, less than a minute.
I'm like typing this so fast to upgrade before
Holy shit.
right now. Sure, should have done earlier. California.
That's hilarious.
0, 4, order.
Oh,
Well, all right.
Oh, it's been upgraded. Yeah, yay.
Cool. All right, we did it. So we're just gonna stick the same link. You guys don't have to me, just I don't know, help me promote my newsletter. If you really want to help me do that. I really want some motivation to keep writing daily, and I'm getting demotivated at the very, very sparse read ratio right now.
What are you talking about? You have 40% open rate. That's like amazing.
I'm having a hard time growing the audience though, which is a thing. That's a different conversation. No big deal for this. I came here for visual design and product thinking. All right. The next one is how might we ensure cost is transparent up front?
Just show the price tags on each thing.
We provide a transparent pricing system, including taxes, no hidden fees. Yes, I'll provide the link to this Figma file afterwards, if that's okay with you, Eugene.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Fees. Can you think of one more for this? Generally, you never want only one hypothesis, right? Because it kind of with a binary solution that's either right or wrong instead of the best solution, if that makes sense. So usually, in terms of like the best solution, there's something called a local maxima and an absolute maxima. So a local maxima is like, like without another reference point, it just seems like the best because it works, but you don't know if something's good or not without multiple reference points. So let's say,
Then provide like a comparison of
yeah,
pricings.
exactly. So like all these, sorry, no, I'm talking about in terms of like why it's important to have like multiple hypotheses.
Oh, I see.
For example, like let's say the North Star metric we want to really optimize for this is number of experiences booked. All right, let's say that's like what we want to optimize for, and we can make up a story behind this. Let's say like the goal isn't to generate revenue through subscription costs. The goal is to promote tourism in countries that don't have a lot of international tourism. So you'd be optimizing for number of bookings instead of total revenue generated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you would have to probably do it over some period of time as well, right? Like if it's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So let's say like, we implement a cheap tag and it validates our hypothesis by increasing like the booking rate compared to not having it. And then the conversion rate goes from, let's say, 1% to 1.4%. And then if that was the only hypothesis we had, we'd be done. But because we have 4 here, we can test all 4 through a multivariate split A/B test. And then we might find that a price range slider actually boosts it to like 2.8%. Like that's very significant and tangible, right? That's the importance of having multiple hypotheses. In fact, like a superpower is like the ability to generate as many hypotheses as possible. So yeah, and yeah, like Jeremy, this is totally like a calculus thing. It's also like a scientific method slash like science research thing. So the beauty of design is that like you don't start from zero, right? You always have some sort of like background that's gonna be beneficial. And I don't know if this is like a bit of a tangent or but
Local maximas and tangents and cosines and sines.
I got you. It's very, very hard to be like a 99th percentile designer in just one thing. But as soon as you become a 75th percentile designer in 2 things and you're able to combine them, you're automatically 99th percentile in that intersection, right? If you combine like, calculus, like really deep calculus and design, you become like the absolute best designer within that intersection, right? Like the kind of quote I really like, this is from polymath learning theory, is that genius isn't getting to 99th percentile within a specific discipline. Genius is like combining things that nobody else has thought to combine before in the past. That's usually like the sign of success, right? Like even the most abstract things can be combined. Like Bruce Lee, right? Like he combined philosophy and martial arts. Like who does that? That's why he's so successful, right? If he was only a martial artist, he probably wouldn't be as successful. Also like combined with acting and all that, but you kind of get the point.
So I'm gonna be like the best mathematical designer in the world. That's
like if you
right.
can use like some sort of like, I don't know, if you can use like differential calculus to optimize like and create like a system for like different hypotheses, and like being able to like track all those like in parallel, you become like a god. Like you will literally like always be rich no matter what. I don't know. I don't really know math, so this is a bad example for me. You know math more than I do. Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad that helped you, Jeremy. All right, let's move forward. So yeah, let's come up with at least 2 hypotheses.
Okay. For the pricing,
Yeah.
let's provide a pricing comparison chart for.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more of a one for this, but these 2 kind of related, so I'll let it slide. Pricing comparison chart with competitors.
Yeah, just like the way Amazon does, I guess.
Yeah, I like that.
Show the breakdown. Maybe like what's getting what you're paying to the guide or host, like
Oh, yeah. Cost.
like how much they're getting. So like how much the actual.
Yeah, Jeremy provided a very good helmet weave, but it's for, sorry, a very good hypothesis, but it's for a different helmet weave, which we haven't even like written down. But if we were to write the corresponding helmet weave for that, it'd be like, how do we allow people to quickly, efficiently, and safely or securely check out so that we can optimize the conversion rate or something like that. Okay, so this took a lot longer than I expected. I would still like to at least come up with a couple hypotheses for the hidden gems and the social media flex so that I can show you how these can be integrated into design. So
Yeah, let's do that. I think this is really interesting.
like, can we do a quick vote right now? Like, there's only 20 people here, so we can tailor this to whatever you guys prefer. Do you guys want to spend more time on this or move over to the visual design? Or like, 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes? What do you guys feel?
More on this is
Cool. All right. I see the consensus. All right, let's do this. All right, let's move over to the hidden gems. How might we? I think this is a very interesting one. I'll call it the ones I think are most valuable to us solve. So I think this one, this one, this one, and then I'm gonna de-scope the navigation one for now because it's gonna add like a lot of complexity in screens, but you wouldn't do this in real life. Let's come up with at least 2 for each of these, and audience, please participate. Jane,
let
hit me.
me help our users identify what's considered a hidden gem. So if we provide a scorecard by other tourists, would that
Does that solve
the
the problem though?
what's that?
Does that solve the problem though? Because recommending it, that's almost like a reverse of what we want, right? If a lot of people recommend it, it's no longer a hidden gem.
If we find places with less foot traffic, then would that constitute a hidden gem?
Foot traffic score, threshold, busyness, busy. How do you spell busyness? Is that right?
With I think with I, but it's okay.
Isn't
You're not an English major.
isn't
Yeah.
that
I think so. Actually, you know what? That's not right.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not an English. I'm an immigrant, guys.
I'm also yeah. Okay. Then can identify what a hidden gem.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
One more.
What if we get the places that are not on the TripAdvisor or has a lot of reviews on Google reviews? Would that be a hidden gem?
Interesting, very interesting hypothesis. I don't think it'll work, but that's the whole point of this. So let's just say not on TripAdvisor tag. So that's a really bad one, but let's use it as a reference point. To answer your question, Lauren, we want to figure out a system that allows us to determine whether or not something's a hidden gem and then communicate that to the user. So it's a 2-faceted problem. Yeah, Jonathan's got this. All right, one more. By the way, just to set like a reference point, this process usually takes a week, like internally at a team.
Oh.
So we're doing
wow.
3 minutes right now. That's why these are bad. Oh yes, that's way better than not on TripAdvisor tag. Local.
Oh yeah.
Brilliant. Ahmed's got a great hypothesis, but it's for a helmet that we don't have here. May's got a good one too. Yeah, a gem. And then this is actually like to technically 3 hypotheses, but it's kind of grouped together. So I'll just do this here. All right, let's come up with one more for discovery. So you had some sort of like Tinder matching idea, right? We provide a, let's take a questionnaire matching system, then we'll be able to show the most relevant hidden gems. If we provide,
If we,
yep, go ahead.
if we connect with their social media account and learn their interest there, is that?
Yeah, if we connect with their social media profile, whoops, then we'll be able to, okay, that works too. And then we can also do one for a robust onboarding screen, then onboarding flow
Would
capture.
Wouldn't that be kind of overlapping with the first one, questionnaire matching system? Because I would imagine that like your onboarding would be somewhat of this like, hey, do you like this or that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. So they're related, but the execution's different, right? And I don't want to get too into like other topics here, but there's two kind of systems that you can try. There's progressive disclosure, which means that you don't put it in onboarding, but you put it in the results screen and just have like a little tag pill card thing that says like, oh, if you want personalized results, click here to do this questionnaire. And then you do removing that interaction cost and friction to later parts of the flow. And a concept, well, the two concepts here is progressive disclosure, which is like progressively showing the things that are relevant as they become relevant. And there's also something called time to value, which is the literal time it takes for a user to get value in your product from sign up all the way till now. If you add an onboarding screen at the beginning, the time to value becomes extended, right? Because they don't get value when they're doing onboarding, they get value when they see the results. Does that make sense?
Sure. So are you saying that there are two ways of going with this? So
Yeah.
that's why you're not grouping them together?
Yeah, because these are two like diametrically opposed approaches that do accomplish the same thing, but their approaches are different. This is actually better than this, in my opinion, but it also depends.
Okay, you should write a whole article on onboarding. I think that's a good topic.
You guys have to tell me what you guys are interested in. Right? I don't know, like not intuitive and like what's like difficult. Like
I think onboarding is a huge topic, like in terms of design and also product thinking too. So we would love to see that.
Start a poll in the group. If it gets enough votes, I'll write an article about it. Sorry, just checking the comments right now. My face is a little bit flush. I'm like, I just realized I've been like drinking whiskey this whole time. Oof.
Oh, there was a question that I thought was really good.
The Jeremy's?
No, James, Richard, do you usually do this collaboratively with your product team? And someone else said, I was wondering the same. Is there another way of ideating with as a team?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Yeah, you want to do this with the product team, right? Because this is, so there's two approaches to problem solving, divergent and convergent. So divergent means everyone's kind of like doing their own thing, and then convergence, like they're coming together. You need to combine both effectively to come with the best solutions, right? You can't have one or the other. Sometimes it's called the double diamond model based off the shape. But usually what we'll do is like everyone spends like a day or like 20 minutes brainstorming their own like how might we's, and then we come together and discuss them and vote on the ones I want to focus on. And then we break apart again, spend another day or 20 minutes coming up with hypotheses, and then we put them all together, group the ones that are related, and then vote on the ones that we actually want to test. Does that make sense? The double model thing? I think the key word, if you want to look this up, is called the double diamond model of innovation.
I think I just saw it at the Intuit onboarding material that we do like triple diamond or something like that. But I think I get what you mean. And Some people are asking, like, is this something that product designers do, or something PMs do, product strategists? Like, what's kind of the
Great
role
question.
here?
Short
And
answer. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Short answer, yes. Every single good product designer should just also be like a good PM. Like they're so related. Like PMs do some slightly different organizational style work that maybe you don't want to do. But if you want like a really good career as a designer, you want to get into leadership, just pretend you're a PM and a designer. Like there is no distinction. Yeah, collaborate with PMs, but like I've always like gone into every product being like, I am also a PM. Like I'm not just a designer, I'm also a PM. And it's like served me very well in my career. Like you can't shy away from this stuff as a designer, right? Like I feel like if anything's gonna get automated in the future, it's the visual design. But this creative thinking aspect, like, will never be automated, like not in our lifetime. Cool. No matter how strong a PM is, that PM's not going to be better than two PMs, is my answer. Okay, cool. All right. I've been talking a lot. Gene, do you want to take this last one?
Oh my God. Okay. How might we help our users learn on which hidden gem to visit? What if we curate the list based on their interests? Do you think that's granular enough?
That's kind of related to this one, right? Relevant.
Right. But this is like
So
giving them the list, and because if we're curating the interest and then we're giving it to them, I don't know, is this too granular, or do you think there's a step I'm missing?
Curate hidden gems based on their preferences. Sometimes you have to like just write it in the sentence and see if that even makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be able to decide on which hidden gem to visit. So does it make sense to me? Because curating implies that you're giving multiple options. Whereas when I wrote the decide on, it's like they're looking at one specific option and they need to decide if they want to like pull the trigger. So when I wrote, I'm trying to come up with hypotheses that are related to that's going to give me insight on how to design like the experience detail page, where you have basically this page here, right, is where people decide on whether or not they want to go on this experience. So like having the
I see.
time and the star rating is your hypothesis on what you think people need to know before they decide. But you designed this without the hypotheses, which is why you only ended up with like the generic stuff. We're trying to figure out what's the unique kind of things we can offer here to help our very, very specific audience solve their very, very specific problem.
Maybe it fits your schedule. So perhaps it's nearby or it's in the time frame that you specified.
If we show explicit, transparent schedule availability. I'm not Englishing this very well right now, but I'm hoping you guys.
Oh, it's okay.
See in the comment right now.
If it's I think I saw
Lauren got a great one. The distance factor is huge. If we make it like a
oh, the reviews, yeah.
If we made
local reviews.
It's got a really interesting one. This is like a whole other can of worms here, but it's like using gamification as a motivation to convince someone. Something like, let's say like you had like, like the 50 national parks in the US, and then you're like, oh, like you on one of the experiences, like, oh, like if you go on this hike, you get 1 point towards your national park badge or something, right? That might help people decide. I feel like that's more towards like motivating them, which is like a slightly different how might we, but I'll include it for this one just in case.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like Pokemon, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone says. What about local reviews? You know, that's
Yeah, reviews. I think that actually touches on a really interesting point because if you think about how you designed this right now, right? You have a star rating. So star ratings are only useful if the volume is really high, right? Like you would need to, what fonts did you use? What the hell? Change this to auto for now. You would need to show the number of reviews, right? So if you showed like something like this, then
Mhm.
trust this, right? But if you show something like this, which is more likely for a hidden gem, then that's not going to mean anything, right? So
Mhm.
we want to kind of help the user understand like how legit or how good something is with very, very low user generated content volume as a constraint. So what other ways can we do that? So like comments and reviews would be good because you don't need a high volume and a lot
Mhm.
of images from the user that's like not set by the tour guide or whatever would be kind of examples of that. Does that make sense?
Mhm. No, this is really useful, helpful because to be honest with you, I kind of got lazy with all these at this stage, to be honest, and I kind of skipped over a lot of the stuff that I really should have done. So yeah, extremely useful.
Like I will comment and say like your design's very, very beautiful. Like there's nothing to really critique that much on just a pure visual design. What I want you and like the audience to really understand here is like how do your hypotheses influence different UI decisions and how do you test them systematically to actually move metrics? Because that's a difference between a very senior designer and a very junior designer, right? The visual design is going to be nearly identical without the context.
Yeah, and I did notice that a lot of times the companies will actually provide you with tons of templates to use, so it will look good.
Yeah. If we show, right, let's say just do reviews and testimonials. That's good. And then we'll do something like user uploaded photos. Can you think of any other ones? I think this is a good list so far.
Yeah, I think it's a good list. This
Okay.
is a week's worth of work, you said, right? So it's crammed it in like oh wow, it's a lot.
So like I'm just gonna list a couple straightforward ones here, but it's like if we allow users to check and incrementally document their travel experience as they go, then they will get more attention volume over time. That's not very human sounding, but point. Um,
If we um if we make uh like hidden photo spots and they go find it, it's kind of like related to the gamification idea, I guess. But cool hidden photo spots.
sorry, can you say that one more time?
If we make it such that there are hidden photo spots in
Oh, yeah.
tours.
Like geocaching slash like Pokemon. Okay, I actually really like that. Um, allow if we um, mark hidden photo spots that tourists can scout out the um, more attention over time. Although that's more for this help my way, so I'll move it here.
Mm.
Um, you have to be pretty rigid here. Like you don't want to come up with a hypothesis that doesn't fit one of your help my ways because it defeats the purpose. Can you think of any other ones? Or
Uh,
dedication? Shareable virtual souvenirs. I'm intentionally like including some bad ones here to kind of illustrate that you don't want a local maxima, you want the absolute maximum per how might we?
If we can make spontaneous crossings with other people on their tours or something. Oh, you guys are crossing. You guys want to meet up spontaneously.
How does that help you get attention on social media though?
Oh, sorry, that's not attention. I was thinking more like in terms of the gaming side of things, just because my mind was there.
That's not one of our How Might We's, but that's a good one. Virtual filters is great. If we enable geo-fenced filters, AR filters, then they will be able to take unique photo. Then they will be able to generate unique and interesting content for social media. You know, as I'm doing this, I'm just like, man, this actually could be an interesting app now as I kind of write this out in more detail.
What's that?
Like all these like ideas are
Oh,
actually,
this one?
yeah, like I'm like, I can see people using this. I love,
how about,
yeah, that's very good. It's kind of like a virtual souvenir, so I'm gonna leave that there. But all right, let's take a pause here. Let's take 5 minutes. Thank you everyone for brainstorming. A lot of good ones in here. I know I didn't capture all of these, but you know, I'm mostly trying to illustrate the process here. So let's take a step back. All right, let's look at the original prompt. Find your way around your new city. And not throwing shade at you because I'm just saying like, you know, if you were to take this prompt at face value, you end up with an extremely generic design that's very nice visually, but there's no uniqueness to it, right? There's no product thinking in here at all, really. There really isn't. You can't really explain your product thinking either. You can't say what the market is, who the user is, like at least not uniquely. And if you think about like the skills required, right? If you were to design this, you develop very, very generic design skills, right? Your visual design skills get very, very incrementally better, which is, you know, as I've talked a lot in the past, is it's fairly not useful in terms of getting a good job. But let's look at these How Might We's, right? What if you took the time to learn the skills and build the context to actually design a good solution to validate every single How Might We here? Let's take a look at what unique things you'll actually learn. So here you're going to learn about a lot of the micro interactions for components like filters, sliders, and tags, right? That's one piece. And then you're going to learn a lot about copywriting different tags to be more appealing, because not only are you going to like have it, you're probably going to like ship a experiment where it just is like cheap, right? And then you're like, all right, the conversion isn't good, but the idea is still there. What if we called it like, you know, all-time low price, which isn't much better, but like you see the conversion that increases, right? You start to develop like skills in content writing and persuasive writing, which is unique, right? Whereas like if you didn't do that, you end up creating like a star and a number, and then that's like not gonna really make you stand out as a designer. And then looking at this one, you maybe start to learn like on the back end how to calculate scores with algorithms, right? Maybe algorithmically how do feeds actually work. That's another piece of unique context, right? And you look at this one, you learn about onboarding and you learn about matching algorithms, which is also very unique. Maybe you learn about APIs and how social media profiles and information is shared and connected. That's also very unique, right? And then here you might learn about like scheduling, logistics, and like how to display like very, very dense layouts. It's also unique. Here you might learn about geofencing and like designs for maps. Do you see like how like by creating these How Might We's, you develop a very unique skill profile and unique contexts?
mm-hmm.
Audience, you guys kind of get it? This is kind of like the thing I'm trying to like push, right? Like this is why you want to do hypothesis-based case studies because you end up with a very unique skill set. So now, when you apply for a company and you show this, right, this doesn't mean anything to them. But I bet you, if you, followed my advice and like did your whole like market sizing thing first, you would realize that there's probably like a bunch of companies, or not companies, governments out there that want to promote international tourism, right? If you like literally just like email, I don't know, like what's a government that needs more tourism? I don't know, like some parts of like rural China or something, and you're like, hey, people, like I spent 4 months building and researching different solutions in the travel promotion market space. Here are my case studies, and look at all these unique skills I have and complexities related to promoting international tourism for countries that don't have a lot of big name attractions. You should hire me to do this for you. I can help you optimize these numbers, or like increase the number of international travelers per capita or per month or something. Then you go from becoming a service-based designer to a kind of like a value-based designer. And then you're able to command a much higher salary. You're able to, like lock yourself in as an expert. And like, I would even bet that like, even with just like 6 months of work in this specific space, you would become like at least like an 80th percentile designer within the space. And whereas if you're applying to like 1,000 companies generically, like at best you'd be 50th percentile, right? Because there's always gonna be like some guy that's like naturally talented or just like insanely like gifted at design things up. Sorry, I'm like kind of our throat's like drying up because I've been talking an hour. Audience, does that make sense?
This is to be honest with you, I think this is better than the book I just read. My friend recommended me to read what was it, Solving Product Design Problems or something like that. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It has a whole framework. And this is what got me started practicing this, and which is why I did this exercise in the first place. And the thing that really bothered me about that book, and I don't know if anyone has read it as well, is that it's just so like rigid, and I wasn't really sure how to apply each thing to a real life case. And like going through the framework that you have here, I actually do understand what like the nitty gritty details of what actually goes on to each thing and how it actually connects, like how everything does connect. So this is really great. Like I'm learning a ton right now.
Yeah, awesome. I know we
Yeah.
spent like more time than I planned. I was gonna do this for like 20 minutes, but so
we should definitely do this again. I'm pretty sure everyone would
yeah,
love this.
like I don't want to keep you guys for too long, but maybe next time what we can do is, I'll talk about how each of these help my ways kind of inform specific design decisions within each of these individual screens here. And then we can talk about how to like optimize it over time and how to do a structured A/B testing approach.
Let's do it.
Yeah, does that sound good to you
I
guys?
love that. Yeah, no, I would love that.
Cool. I'm just gonna answer a few quick questions from the chat. Ian, all the past video sessions are recorded on YouTube. DKim, is this style that this is adapted from Google Ventures Design Sprint. It's actually like, so this is kind of like my own secret sauce because my background's in science, like a lot of biomechanical research, like the whole scientific method is literally like baked into my brain, right? So like, yes, the concept of a hypothesis exists, but I haven't seen anyone tie it in from this kind of prompt to how might we opportunity to hypothesis flow and actually set up a structured A/B testing methodical approach to optimizing granular metrics. So that's actually something that like came from my science background, which I think is like what makes me unique as a designer and what makes me like good as a growth designer. So obviously I take a lot of inspiration from like existing frameworks out there. But like I don't follow anything to a T, and neither should you. Does that make sense? Cool. Just looking at the other questions. Yeah, so Jonathan, basically with Help My We's and hypotheses and decision-making design in general, you are always operating with incomplete information, right? And every single person has like a different profile of like information that they have access to based off your own context. Like this is why I always advocate for the power of context as a skill set, because if I grew up in China, well, actually I did grow up in China. What am I saying? So I grew up in China. If I were to or improving international tourism in rural China, I would have access to more information than a designer or engineer or PM that grew up in North America. And that's why it's also important to have this like collaborative relationship with a teammate, because everyone has incomplete information. If you're able to merge information, you get more conviction on your various assumptions, and based off that, you can either use data, research, or market analysis to become more or less confident on each of these help my we's, which you then use to distill down to hypotheses. Because in product development, resources are always going to be finite, right? You're not going to be able to do all of these. So you need to, have a system, and you have to like trust your context, and you like validate the assumptions that make sense to figure out what to actually test and build. Does that make sense?
There's a good question. When will you do a user research to validate all these hypotheses?
So, well, a lot of questions here. So I think a lot of new designers are way too fixated on process, because they're usually like a bootcamp graduate that's like only taught one process. And then, like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's like not a good approach, right? Like good designers are very adaptable with their process, and they know exactly what to do, like what tools to use, when, why, and how to like change that accordingly based on the constraints and resources that you do have. So I don't have like a blanket answer to give you aside from like, reflect on your experiences and calibrate and adapt over time, because that's what's going to make you a good designer, right? A lot of like new designers coming into the field, they'll be like, oh, man, like this person's design is God tier. It's so beautiful. Like I wish one day I can create designs as beautiful as that, right? And they go down like the completely wrong path on what product design is, and they end up like optimizing for a skill that ultimately has very, very, very low return on investment over time. This isn't UX research, this is technically product thinking, but UX research is heavily involved in this process, or it could be, but it doesn't have to be because it always depends. So I know that's like not a great answer, but like there's no absolutes in design. So like stop looking for it. You have to, you have to be confident, you have to like move forward, you have to like reflect and introspect on your experiences and what works and what doesn't work. For example, like we can go into this right now, right? Based off my experiences, I have very, very, very high confidence that the price range slider here is going to be the best solution, because of what I know about interaction design, interaction cost, user preferences, and also the success of this pattern on Airbnb. So, we would come up with these 4 hypotheses, but then I would be like, I think this is the best solution. I'm like 95% confident. I don't think it's worth testing these 3. And then I just move forward, right? Whereas if you were somebody else more junior, then you don't have the same context I do. So you might want to test all 4. And then you can also factor in like research, like what your users specifically say. Like maybe you're dealing with like really old people that don't know how price range sliders work. Then you want to do tags instead, because that's the lowest interaction cost. Or maybe you only have one engineer and maybe like 8 sprint hours to validate this hypothesis. Then in that case, the cheap tag is the only option you can do, right? So it depends. Does that make sense? Looking at some other questions here. James, I've never done any PM course. I've just tried to be the PM on every product that I've worked on, and whatever I don't understand, I just like try and learn on the job, which I think is the best way. I'm actually very anti like books and courses because I think they make you really generic. They're really good as references, but I don't think you should like take somebody's advice on like, hey, do this book, read this course, and then do it in its entirety. Like think about like how many people complete courses. Every time I go on LinkedIn, I see like a billion people with that interaction design foundry certificate. Well, it doesn't mean anything, right? Like so many people have it, like you having it doesn't actually add to your value or skill set. Like if you were to work on a product that's like very interaction design heavy, then you could reference it and do the bits and pieces that are relevant to you. But like forcing yourself to do a course is like the worst thing you can do for your growth. Well, not the worst thing. It's still better than doing nothing. But it's not the optimal way. And this is heavily opinion based, so take it with a grain of salt.
I like this question here. Can you show how to decide what goes into MVP? And like, I have some thoughts on this, but I would love to hear your thoughts and what you guys do at your work, because, you know, I think it depends on the scale of the company as well.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So again, I'm like echoing a lot of what I've read in my product thinking articles. A new one drops tomorrow, by the way. I'll read that shameless plug. Ambitiousdesigner.substack.com. Share with your friends. All right, sorry. TLDR. There's only one thing that really matters in the success of a product, right? And it's not design. Like how pretty a UI is not going to make or break your product. The only thing that matters is a product market fit. And the whole point of MVP is trying to validate product market fit as fast as possible with as little resources as possible, so you can pivot and adapt accordingly. So an MVP is as much or as little as you need to validate product market fit in some way. And if you get really creative, you can actually validate and create MVPs that don't like involve any code. Like I've literally built a Figma prototype that links out to different services and products and websites. And then I was like, just imagine that this is all in one product, but like go through this in this exact order. What do you think? And not a single line of code was written, but I was able to validate the product market fit and actually invest the resources to build like a full platform for it afterwards. So a bit of a cop-out answer, but you know, it's always going to depend again. If I were to be able to like tell you like, you know, this is like the set of rules and this is the framework to define a perfect MVP every single time, then it would have been automated at this point. So like really kind of you know, focus on, you know, introspection and problem solving, creativity, because like that's your biggest strength as a designer. It's like not your design skills. Design's just like an end to like a means or whatever. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm getting philosophical here or if this is like not helpful for you. I'm trying to like,
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I can add my 2 cents on this. I think we do have a lot of hypotheses here, and if you're working for a big company, for sure you'll have a team that generates a lot more of these. But if you are working on an MVP, that means you probably are lacking resources. You're probably working on a very small team. Just go with your guts, because you probably started on this idea on some sort of guts. So, and I think that should probably apply to a lot of, even if you're working in a bigger company, just go with whatever guts tell you, because you don't have any researches to go from if you're just like pumping out MVP that's like super concierge, like lo-fi style, right? And then you just keep iterating, and that is the whole point of the MVP, right? You just have to produce something out there, learn, iterate. You just keep going through that.
Yeah. Great. I'm gonna end this here because otherwise it's gonna be like a 5-hour recording, and I'm sure everyone's tired. But I'm happy to take some more questions not related to this or related, up to you guys. I can take 10 minutes of answering any questions you guys have. Anything related to like career, product thinking, research, testing, MVPs. What's on everyone's mind? And Gene, feel free to participate too. I think you had some questions as well, right?
Oh, what's a good book on product thinking? I know you said you didn't like books. I can I give you one of the books that I think is good? I really liked Sprint, I guess, the GV book, Sprint. That gives you a really good overview of how things could run in a most efficient manner. Do you suggest pursuing junior level roles when finishing up a bootcamp? I think Richard has been saying this forever, and which is that no one is really a junior because you have some experience from some different niche or background, and you don't have to be a junior if you do your cocktail right.
Exactly.
You make the cocktail properly.
Yeah. Yeah, adding my 2 cents to that. Yeah, Mike, This Is Marketing is a great book. It's actually one of the few books that I think like are actually worth reading end to end. I am releasing like a 5 to 6 or even 10-part series on product thinking, which is like a summary of all the books, courses, resources I've consumed over the past 5 years. Shameless plug, but I think it's going to be better than a book. So subscribe and read it when it comes. On Vina's question, yeah, I don't think anyone's a junior designer. Like, I think it's a myth. I think it's an excuse to pay you less. I had less than 6 months of experience and I was able to get intermediate roles and even one senior role outside of school. It's about finding the company that's going to value your skill set, right? Let's say I don't know, let's say you're like an English major that like worked in like a lot of like publishing and I don't know, like journalism for all your internships, right? If you apply to like a generic company, then you're going to be junior. If you apply to, I don't know, let's say Grammarly, or like, I don't know, Hemingway or Medium, and then you're able to like really articulate your background and how it applies to content design, content marketing, content writing, and maybe that startup like doesn't have a full-time copywriter or they need one, then you can potentially leverage your existing skill sets to get in at an intermediate position rather than a junior. So it's all about like finding the right fit. Does that does that answer your question, Vina?
uh,
Oh, I don't know if she responded. And thank you, Chris. I'm doing fine.
James asks, how do you deal with PMs who are resistant to this diverging and converging processes and have a set thing they want to do? Do you have maybe strategies to create more influence? I guess that's the question. Do you have strategies to create more influence as a designer in at the table when there are PMs, really strong PMs? Is that kind of the question there, I guess?
I can't tell if you're talking about a PM that's like bad or a PM that's like very, very senior, because I would approach those very differently.
Junior PMs or senior? Okay.
I'm assuming that, okay, James asked the question, right? Yeah, okay. So let's say junior PMs. In junior PMs, like it should be a collaborative process between you and them. They should not be dictating. Well, no PM should be dictating everything. Obviously, there's different personalities, and some PMs are just generally like bad to work with. In your design career, you're gonna work with a lot of people that are incompetent and not super great. It's just life. Like not everyone's gonna be stellar. It's up to you on how to kind of like overcome and address that. If you just like completely like shut down and like it's kind of like the whole fixed mindset versus growth mindset thing, right? Like you can't just like accept like, oh, like I got dealt with a bad or junior PM, so this is not going to work. Like you need to continuously try to make it work. Like try and introduce like new processes, try and build stronger relationships, try different approaches on how to convince them, involve them in different ways. Keep trying until it works, right? Even if it doesn't work at the end, in the future when you deal with a better PM, like you're gonna see like a 10x ROI on the effort that you put in. Like if you can work with somebody bad, then you will work 10x better with somebody good, which is like I actually like really cherish opportunities to work with really bad people, because I feel like, you know, if you go in with the right mindset, like a growth mindset, and like even make it kind of work at the end, any other person you work with afterwards, you're going to be so much better. So just treat it as an opportunity. Like, don't be focused on kind of like the outcome of getting them to adopt, like, let's say the double diamond model of innovation. Like, that's like not going to be great. Like, you can push it and you can try different things, but focus on like more of the process of improving your collaboration skills than like trying to achieve specific organizational or process outcomes. Does that make sense, James?
Great advice, Richard. Thank you.
Cool. Jonathan, I cannot talk about Facebook, so I can't answer your question. All right. Did I answer everything? Is that, yeah, sorry, like it's just it's a HR PR thing. You know how it is.
Oh, here's a question. What is the best strategy to deal with imposter syndrome? I'm currently a bootcamp student and I'm already feeling it.
I always thought imposter syndrome was interesting because like there's a name for it. You've identified the fact that you feel it. So like, and you know it's gonna hold you back in your career. It's a huge handicap in your growth. So like, I don't know, like you have to kind of like fake it till you make it. Like it's confidence, right? Like obviously, like, you know, it's easy to be like, oh, just like don't be an imposter. You know, that's not gonna help. Few specific points in my life when I was like, all right, like I've made it. I'm like a very solid designer. Like I'm confident, like amongst my peers. The first time was when I launched my very first product, and I saw like genuine happy users use it, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need. And I'm like, oh, I designed that. Thank you. And then that kind of reaffirmed that I was like on the right track, right? You know, I wasn't perfect. There were a lot of flaws in the product, but still provided someone with value. Like people don't expect perfect products, right? They expect a product that solves their problem better than whatever exists out there. And like perfection is like a continuous thing that you strive for. So if you're making one user happy with your product, then you're a good designer. So that's like the first point. The second point is very, very early on in my career, I started mentoring. I truly believe the best way to learn is to teach somebody, and the best way to build your confidence is to teach somebody well. So ideally, in the ideal kind of educational system for design, you have a mentor, you have peers, and you have mentees at all times, no matter what level you are. So if you're feeling like you're an imposter, there's always be somebody more junior than you. If you can mentor that person and teach them, one, you're going to build and consolidate a lot of your own knowledge. But two, when you see like your explanations like hitting and like clicking for somebody else more junior than you, you're going to realize like how far you've come yourself. And that kind of unlocks some of that imposter syndrome, at least for me. Does that help, you know? That's only anecdotal though. So yeah, okay, cool, awesome.
If you, okay, oh, I think Andy asked this twice already, but what's the best way to introduce this type of product thinking into an organization? I guess not every organization is really, you know, incorporating this product thinking that well. And to be honest with you, I think I know what he's talking about. It can be very disorganized sometimes in large organizations even.
Yeah. So I think I literally wrote an article about this already, and I think you edited it. It's a one about 4 different organizational decision-making cultures. There's different approaches to it. When it's like
The archetype ones.
archetypes, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to expand on it a little bit more, but first identify your organization's archetype, and then kind of like follow the tips I recommended on how to like approach and pitch new things.
Guys, just read the newsletter next time. I'm kidding.
Write newsletter articles for questions that are very common, right? So that's why I keep referring back to it. But maybe I'll write about that in more detail.
Yeah, I like that one actually, because I never really thought about it that way. But it kind of helps you to frame some people into certain buckets. Then you know how to approach them, right? If you are approaching this type of person, then you have to have certain type of approach. So that's kind of the angle that you were going at in that article too. So it's really helpful.
To D. Kim's question and Jonathan's approach, I think, yeah, like what you said totally makes sense. Like, come at it from a design perspective. Don't go into it saying like, I'm the PM now, you know, like it has to, like, that's more for you internally. And the whole illusion of like doing their work is only if you give them finished work, right? If you involve them in the process and like, hey, as a designer from a UX perspective, I identified this opportunity or problem either within the product or the org. Here are some of my initial thoughts, and keep it very, very rough and light. And be like, I would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe we can grab a room and whiteboard it together. That's how you present yourself as a strategic partner instead of just like, hey, like here's my thoughts on product, and then they're gonna be like, what the hell are you doing, right? Like you need to involve them. Like it's an ego thing as well, and it also goes into like good collaboration and involves the other person. Like it's not homework, right? You don't just give them something completed. Like that's more work for you and makes you look worse. So present a proper opportunity from a design angle, and then involve them in the process and bring in some initial thoughts, but don't bring in completed work.
Yeah, just to add to that, make them feel like it's also their solution, not your solution. Make
Yeah.
them feel right. So that's why you give them pieces by pieces. It's like, so it's our solution and kind of more their solution, not your idea.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think cool. I'm glad that answered your question. We're like an hour and 37 minutes. Thank you everyone for
Oh wow.
staying so long. I didn't really plan for it to be this long. I hope to do more visual design, but hope you guys got some really good insights here. Chris, I know we're going to talk after this, so we'll hop on Messenger. Jane, if you have any other questions, or you said you had some stuff to talk about for your career.
Okay, I just wanted to bounce off ideas with you on my my new role. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do that later today, or we can do it right after. Yeah, we'll just coordinate on Messenger. But Chris, I'll see you right after this. Does that work for
thanks
you?
everyone. Yep, sounds good.
Have a great
Thanks everyone.
Yeah.
Bye. Oh hey, FYI, are you gonna share the file then? Because then I think you gotta
Oh, I already
delete. What's that?
duplicated it, so it's on mine. So I'll just share the draft.
Oh, okay, good. And also you can delete the old page. There are 2 pages. Like there's like mockup March 2 and then old. Just delete the old one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, if you could. Yeah. Do you have you say you have to talk to someone right now?
I do, but like I'm wondering how long do you need for your thing? Is it like a 20-minute conversation or like an hour-long conversation? Like what do you need?
I don't know. So you're still recording.